Our next keynote speaker is Dr. Susan Kohler Monarez. Dr. Susan Kohler Monarez is Deputy Director at the Advanced Research Project Agency of Health, known as ARPA-H. Since we are an international group, I just want to briefly say that we in the United States are extremely, extremely excited, and we are really grateful to President Biden to form ARPA-H. It's going to now be, Dr. Kohler, 1 year, because it was really inaugurated on March 15, 2022. It was given $1 billion, but wait, to be spent by 2025. So we know how to spend your money, and we are really, really looking forward to your presentation. If you don't mind, just one little part of your history, which I think it's amazing. She's an internationally, globally recognized leader with experience in health innovations. And that's really why we need Dr. Monarez. Prior to becoming a deputy director of ARPA-H, she was, listen to this, she founded the Center for Innovation at the Health Resource and Service Administration, which is the largest funder of safety net health programs in the Department of Health and Human Services. Truly remarkable, and we are very much looking to your presentation. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Let me get my slides here. Can you see my slides okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. Before I jump in, I just want to apologize. I'm not there to be in-person presentation. I was able to join for part of the presentations yesterday, and it's just a remarkable assembly of just such tremendous subject matter expertise. I learned a lot yesterday. I'm hoping to be able to join for a little bit longer today. As Hedvig said, we're running up on our 1-year anniversary, and we have a lot that we're working on right now. And so the time commitment just I wasn't able to make it down in person. But we do have one of our leaders from ARPA-H in the cancer domain, Dr. Arunan Skandaraja, who's in the room today, and he is available to follow up and intends to be there for as much of the meeting today as possible. So Arunan will introduce himself, and please reach out to him if you have any additional questions or comments after the briefing that I give this morning and our opportunity for questions and answers. So thank you for inviting us. We are also very excited about the promise of ARPA-H. I'm going to give you some background on it, and I'll talk a little bit about our nexus with the administration priority on the cancer moonshot and where we might be going in some of our program activities, and certainly welcome the opportunity for any type of discussion now or certainly follow up after my presentation. So our mission, as we were established, is to accelerate better health outcomes for everyone. And we're taking a very open approach. We recognize that the health ecosystem is so broad, and our constituencies are 330 million Americans across the United States. And we really want to make sure that anything that we do in the innovation and the transformation space is accessible and is appropriate for everyone, not just a subset of the population. We are truly honored that we are in a position to execute on President Biden's vision. When he announced us, he was very clear that ARPA-H will pursue ideas that break the mold on how we normally support fundamental research and commercial products in this country. And really the mandate that we're given is that we need to push forward ideas that are so audacious that people will say they just might work if only we could try. Well, As we're established, we are trying in a big way. I think you're going to see some really exciting activities coming out of ARPA-H very soon. We've been in the process of standing up our organization. There's several key features about HHS. The first is that we are part of NIH, and we're so proud to be part of our NIH. We're proud to be partners with Dr. Harris and NCI and everything that's going on in her organization, but also all of our other really brilliant scientist colleagues throughout the NIH. And so we are co-located with that amazing organization, but we're also a direct report to the HHS secretary. And I think that's a testament to really wanting to make sure that ARPA-H can be as transformational, as innovative as absolutely possible. So we were provided $1 billion in our first year. We were incredibly humbled and thankful that we got another $1.5 billion for FY23. So that gives us a total current operating budget of about $2.5 billion. As I mentioned, we are an independent component of HHS, but we are tucked in and partnered with NIH, but we're not an institute. We're an independent agency within that organization. My boss, Dr. Wegeson, is direct report to the HHS secretary. We, unlike NIH, will have no internal labs. We are disease agnostic. The vast majority of what we do will be out in the public in the public and private sector domain. So our funding goes out the door to support research outside of the federal government intramural lab type model. It's a lean and nimble management structure. There are very few of us. Part of it is by law. We are capped at 210 federal employees, which means that we're going to have a small footprint. We're going to have a lot of subject matter expertise that come in by contractors. A lot of our work is going to be program manager driven. And so we're out recruiting the best and the brightest innovators across the United States who want to come into ARPA-H and really be able to say, here is the problem set that we want to innovate, and we want to drive solutions in a way that no other agency can do. And that's who's really going to be pushing us to make sure that we have the highest impact that we possibly can. Like I said, we're not grants-based. We are, our funding is going to go out with cooperative agreements, other transaction authorities, and contracts. And that's the way that we can give ourselves the greatest flexibility to have the highest impact through our research. And so we are a high-risk, high-impact research organization. As I mentioned, the health ecosystem is all of us. I mean, it's everyone within the federal government who is investing in changes in the health ecosystem, supporting the transformation, supporting day-to-day operations of what goes on across the health ecosystem, like our colleagues at NIH and FDA and CMS and HRSA, and really wanting to make sure that those stakeholders are intimately linked with what we're doing every day within our portfolio. We recognize that there are partners in NGOs, industry, academia, that we want to help support. These are our performers. These are the individuals who are on the front lines helping to transform the health ecosystem. And then there's our customers. Ultimately, what we do has to translate to the public. It has to make sure that we're offering a better healthcare future for everyone. And that's going to also touch on the healthcare providers and patient groups. So all of those elements of the health ecosystem are what we take into consideration as we're developing our portfolio, as we're expending our resources. The way that we actually shape our programs is very similar to what other advanced research project agencies have done, and including DARPA, for those of you who are familiar with it. And it really anchors ourselves in fundamental questions about what is it that we're doing that is, clearly directed towards a problem. And these are anchored in Heilemeyer questions, which were founded, really in DARPA and back in the 1950s and 1960s. But they're really easy to sort of say. They're a little bit more challenging, and they set a pretty high bar for when we're thinking about, are our programs going to have that transformational, innovative impact that we seek to achieve? And so there's 10 of them that we asked all the program managers as they're thinking about, coming into our organization and launching these programs, to be able to answer in really a high level of specificity and precision. So what are you trying to do? What are you trying to solve? How does it get done, right now? And who does it? And what are the limitations? And it's so important for us to be able to answer that in a meaningful way, because there's so much innovation that's going on every single day in the health ecosystem. And we've heard about it, yesterday, we heard about it this morning from Dr. Harris. We recognize we're not always going to be the first to think, oh my gosh, this is a problem area, we need to do something about it. Given the amount of resources that are going into the health ecosystem, we have to make sure we do our due diligence and we understand what else is going on, who else is doing this, and what is it that our approach is different. And so that's why Heilemeier question 3 is so important. What is new about what we're trying to do? And why do we think we can be successful where others either haven't invested or have failed before us? And then there's just a number of questions like, who cares? What difference are we going to make? Understanding the risks. We are fortunate that we can be a high risk, high reward, high impact agency, but we have to understand the risks to make sure that we're mitigating them to the extent possible to really optimize the resources that we've been afforded to us. How long will it take? Is this a 1-year project, a 5-year project, a 10-year project? How much will it cost? How are we actually going to evaluate to ensure that we're making progress? And these are two that Dr. Wegersen, really the last 2 questions are ones that she wanted us to make sure that we're fully prioritizing in a way that really wasn't incorporated in the previous design of these Heilemeier questions. And the first one, question 9, is how do we ensure that there's equitable access for all people? How will cost, accessibility, and user experience be addressed? And that really comes back to that anchoring of our mission, which is it's better health outcomes for everyone. And we want to make sure that everyone, regardless of where they live, where they work, and any sort of other sort of attributes associated with them as individuals or populations is incorporated into how we're thinking about our programs and our portfolio. And then the last one is, how could this be perceived or misused? And how do we make sure that we prevent this from happening? We're really going to be pushing on the outer edges of innovation in science and technology. And we understand that we have to make sure that we're thinking about potential misuse or misinterpretation or misperception about anything we do. So I don't want to go into too much depth on this because I want to make sure we have plenty of time for questions. But our program life cycle is really going to be sort of very straightforward and very much like one would find in the business sector. So, the first part is we design our programs. We're talking about, the Heilemeier framework that we just sort of went over, which is what is the problem? What are the questions? How are we answering those questions? And making sure that we have incorporated all the appropriate stakeholder insights to make it sure it's as well informed as absolutely possible. The next thing we do is we build our performer team. So we have the ability, because of our flexibility and how we can allocate resources between those cooperative agreements, OTAs, and contracting, that we can build the best-in-class performer team. And so we'll solicit from the community once we understand what the program is that we want to launch. We'll launch a broad agency announcement to make sure that everybody who has an opportunity to be part of that partnership, part of the coalition that's going to ultimately, deliver on the program promise, has an opportunity to compete. It has an opportunity to give us the best and brightest ideas that they have associated with the program and the problems we're trying to solve. And our intention is to be very inclusive and very transparent so that we do get the best non-traditionals in industry and academia to help us solve these problems. And then we'll think about, how do we execute and measure, making sure that we have very active program manager. It's really much more like the private sector. As we're letting these contract, as we're driving through these programs, we recognize, because we're in a high risk environment, if we run, 4 parallel performer teams working to solve a problem, it's entirely likely that only one out of those 4 performer teams is going to actually get meet all of those milestones that we set out for the program, and get all the way through to a transitional product that can be transitioned out into the sort of the consumer population. And so we'll design very tight milestones, and we'll be very clear with our performers about what they need to hit to be able to continue to receive funding. And when we see that there is a suboptimal execution against our plan, we'll pivot our resources. So it's much more like the private sector, where we can take our resources from an area that's not achieving, and we can put them towards something that we think has a greater likelihood of success. And then we'll learn. We are going to be a learning organization. So as we see what is working within our portfolio, within our performer set, within our program areas, we don't see failure as in failing to meet a milestone or a benchmark as a lack of success. What we actually see that as a learning opportunity. And our intention is, as we find areas where things are not moving the way that we thought they would move, we're actually going to make sure we harness that knowledge and we apply it to what we do going forward, whether it's on the way that we executed a contract, whether it's on a way we designed a program, it's on the way that we provided oversight to a performer. All of that gives us opportunity to continue to grow and make sure that our organization is constantly improving all aspects of our program lifecycle. One of the things that we talk about is we don't want to make incremental changes. We know that there's so much going on in the innovation space, and some of it is incremental. That's not how we're designed, and that's not how we're going to execute our portfolio. Our portfolio, at a minimum, we say 10x improvement relative to the current baseline, but that could be 100x or 1,000x, or we would really do something that's not even part of the portfolio at all right now. And so we really are pushing ourselves to make sure that with our resources, we're being transformational. And then ultimately what our goal is to make sure that these products can be commercialized and transitions. One of the challenges that often happens within a sort of a funding profile for programs is they can only go so far. And you could get a prototype that's made it all the way through almost, let's talk about something like a vaccine or a therapeutic or a diagnostic or whatnot, and it will get to a certain point in the approval regulatory pathway. And then there's no transition partner, and there's no resources to be able to take it to the last mile to get into the commercial market. Our intention with our programs is actually to build that in from the very first day, which is to start thinking about how would we actually get this into a place of commercialization and transition. So we've built out an entirely new subpart of our organizations that is completely focused on that. And so almost from day one, when a program manager comes in and says, I have this great idea, we mapped them up with individuals who have that experience in venture capital, in developing companies, or in licensing products. And we provide mentorship and connections to customers and to investors. And it really helps us de-risk those investments to enable those products to get out into the commercial and broadest community market possible. So what's really exciting is when Dr. Wegerson came on, we really sort of had an open sort of portfolio. We weren't positioned yet to parse it in any meaningful way. And one of the first things she did is to start thinking about, well, what are the big bins of activities that we really need to make sure that we're thinking about to be, a transformational, innovative organization? And so we sort of landed on these 4 big categories of activity. And you're going to see a lot of this coming out from us over the next months or years, which is how, we're sort of anchoring what we're thinking about in funding in each portfolio. The first is health science futures. And that's really accelerating advances across research areas and removing limitations that stymie progress, and thinking about tools and platforms and things that apply to a broad range of diseases. And then scalable solutions. This is one where we understand that something that is in the health ecosystem that is providing capability may be limited geographically via distribution, manufacturing, or data and information. So something is holding back scaling that particular capability or that particular solution. And so scalable solutions is taking something that that can help and support a small subset of the population and allowing it to reach everyone quickly. Proactive health is one where we think about how do we keep people from being patients. It's preventative programs that create new capabilities to detect and characterize disease risk and promote treatments and behaviors to anticipate threats to American health. And whether those are viral, bacteria, chemical, physical, or psychological, really trying to make sure that we're moving up in that continuum of health towards prevention and wellness. And then the last is resilient systems, and that's thinking about building an integrated healthcare system, creating capabilities and business models and integrations that weather such crises like the pandemic that we all just lived through, social disruption, climate change, economic instability. These are, we're looking at ways to think about systems to sustain between the crisis and the sort of the waning, and when attention moves on to the next topic, how do we actually sustain between the panic and neglect cycle that we've seen happen so many times in our health systems? And this is everything from the molecular to the societal to achieve our better health outcomes. Our program managers really can be the range. I get this question all the time. Are you looking for somebody who's brand new in science, or are you looking for somebody who's, a very senior PI in some academic institution? And the answer is yes. We're looking for all of the above. We're really looking for people who want to think like a CEO. They have a recognized expertise within their domain, and they really want to be big and bold and have no fear and drive innovation. You can see all of the attributes that we sort of think to ourselves, this is what a great PM makes. And I will tell you, we've been so fortunate that a number of individuals have come forward and applied to become program managers, and so many of them embody these exact characteristics. And so one of the things, and certainly you should talk to Arun about this as well, is if you or someone that within your sort of community embodies these attributes, encourage them. We're looking for people who just want to come in and just do like sprinted, no fear program manager, launch these creative, innovative, high risk, high reward programs and help ARPA-H become what we know everybody expects it to be, which is a transformational organization. So we're really modeled after a bottom-up PM-driven organization. So our program managers, as I said, they identify these well-defined problems to pursue through the program lifecycle that I just talked about. And every one of them, as they come in, are sort of given this, this mantra: make sure that your programs survive in the wild. Make sure that people will want them and they will adopt them. Don't worry about the improbable and the impossible, right? Separate the two. People will say that's impossible. Is it impossible, or is it just improbable? And if we think and we design our programs structured well enough, we actually just make it improbable. But that's okay, because we're in that space to be able to do high risk, high reward research. And then again, we're delivering better health outcomes for everyone. Make sure that as we design our programs, that we're keeping the entire population in mind. So this is the call to action. As I mentioned, we're in a position to actively hire. We're super excited. We seem to be bringing on more and more talent almost every day. If anyone is interested, please scan the QR code, apply now. We have a number of different positions that are open. Our primary focus is on our program managers. They are the heartbeat of our organization, and we want the best and the brightest to help come in and help build out ARPA-H. We're also looking to actively engage research, patient, and stakeholder communities. So if you're interested in having a further conversation with us, certainly reach out. We're definitely getting out of the DC metropolitan area and meeting with as many folks as absolutely possible to inform our programs and to make sure that we're clear and transparent about what we're working. And we have a number of additional programs or positions that are open beyond just our program managers. We're looking at acquisitions, contracting, where data is huge for us. We're looking for a chief data officer, chief of staff, senior health economist, CAIO, and many others. And I would encourage you to continue to look there. So as I mentioned, we're really interested in ensuring that we support the administration's priority on the cancer moonshot. And we're honored to be part of this group that is sort of under the Cancer Cabinet. So it's the collaborative action to end cancer as we know it. And we are supporting that as well. We were launched in the context of the cancer moonshot. So as many of you know, President Biden called on Congress to fund ARPA-H during the State of the Union. We have been, sort of part of the dialogue and the narrative associated with the cancer moonshot. There was the new goals that were set for the cancer moonshot. We know that Dr. Bertagnolli and Dr. Wegersen were announced in short succession, and we're super excited to be partners with NCI. And Dr. Wegersen meets with Dr. Bertagnolli on a very regular basis, and we're making sure that we have close and continued communication across the portfolios as we build them out. I think many of you are familiar with the Cancer Moonshot, the 2022 strategic priorities, closing the screening gap, addressing environmental exposure, decreasing impact of preventable cancers, bring cutting edge research to patients and support patients and caregivers. And we incorporate into these and we think about those as we're designing our how we would think about our portfolio, and as how we're thinking about should we have a program in this space, making sure that it is aligned with those moonshot strategic priorities. So when you think specifically about how ARPA-H can contribute to the moonshot, so a couple of things. The first is appointing a cancer moonshot champion. And Arunan's in the room, and I would definitely suggest that, following up with him on this, he has really been leading many of our cancer moonshot activities to really, make sure that we're identifying the internal efforts across the mission officers that utilize the whole of ARPA-H aligned to cancer moonshot. Arunan has been doing extensive stakeholder outreach on behalf of ARPA-H with individuals and organizations and patient support and advocacy groups related to cancer. And then collaborating with the cancer moonshot leaders in OSCP, NIH, and across government. Our PMs, as they come on, again, they're coming in with identification of the problems that they seek to solve. If they come in with an idea that is related to cancer and the cancer moonshot, they're able to leverage the infrastructure of ARPA-H as we're building it out, as well as our partners. And that includes, the data, the networks, and various implementation pathways, and translate their ongoing research efforts into the capabilities for researchers and patients, and then ultimately hoping to solve prioritized problems within the moonshot that cannot be solved otherwise. And we think about striking the right balance, collaborating to seize the moment while maintaining the flexibility for ideas and domains beyond cancer. So we have a number of different sort of notional programs that we could potentially launch should we have program managers that come in and have this sort of idea and this problem set in their mind. So whether it's closing the screening gaps, addressing environmental exposures, decreasing the impact of preventable cancers, supporting patients and caregivers, bringing cutting edge research to patients, and addressing inequities. All of those will be incorporated with those program managers who come in and really are focused on the cancer domain. And one area that we've been really thinking about that aligns with Moonshot Priority number 4, which is bringing cutting edge research to patients, is digital histopathology and looking at how do we automate? So current histopathology practices are manual and generally require an expert in the loop. And we understand that it's costly and data is not always accessible to share broad insights to improve patient care. And so thinking about technical areas that we would be interested in exploring, including, designing and developing novel multi-omic histopathology assays, leveraging advanced data analytics like AI, ML, and data technology for automated diagnostics and 3D tissue characterization, data integration into care pathways and digital advocacy, and then, looking at beyond just cancer, proof of concept certainly would be helpful for metastatic cancers, but also thinking about neurodegenerative diseases and wound healing. And so one of the things that, we're really thinking about is, we apply it in one domain, and can it actually serve purposes in multiple domains, and really expanding the sort of the concepts of innovation across all of the health ecosystem landscape. So with that, I'm going to stop.